Hi guys, welcome back. Today is the third video of verbals, and we are going to be discussing gerunds and gerund phrases. So please remember to either type these notes out or write these notes out so you have a reference for future use. Okay, like present participles, gerunds end in ing. So unfortunately, you can't just look at the word and figure out if it's a participle or if it's a gerund. You actually have to see how it's functioning in the actual sentence to figure out the kind of verbal we're dealing with. The two videos before this were participles, and those were typically acting as adjectives. Gerunds, however, act as nouns. Gerunds can be used as subjects, direct objects, predicate nouns, and objects of prepositions. Remember, all of these verbals look like they could be verbs in other sentences. However, the function of these words are anything but verbs. So these are going to be words like kayaking, reading, cooking, and driving. If you notice, all of them end in ing. The difference is these words are acting as nouns. Just like with a participle, you can have a participle phrase. With gerunds, you can have a gerund phrase, and a gerund phrase is a gerund with modifiers or complements all acting together as a noun. So these are very similar. They start with the gerund. However, the rest of the phrase, the other words after it, all act as one function in the sentence. So I could say, running is my favorite sport. In that example, running is the gerund. Is the verb. If I said running marathons is my favorite sport, running marathons is the gerund phrase because running marathons is acting together as the subject of the sentence. So here we have the example, hearing classical music has inspired many musicians. Hearing classical music is acting as the subject. Those three words are the gerund phrase. The actual gerund is hearing. It ends in ing. My little hint, and I think I've said this in class before, because the word gerund begins with a G, all gerunds end with a G. But please be careful because, like I mentioned before, there are other types of verbals that end in ing, and those are present participles. So you really have to look at the sentence itself and see the function of the verbal that you're dealing with. If you need to pause this, please do so. And if you're caught up, go ahead to the next slide. All right, here we have some practice for you to work on. You're going to underline the gerund phrase and you're going to circle the gerund. So all of these sentences have a gerund phrase. The gerund phrase is always beginning with the gerund. The gerund always ends in ing. So you're looking for the part of the sentence that is functioning as a noun, whether it's a object of preposition, a subject, a complement, whatever it may be. So we have driving too fast is very dangerous. I'll do the first one with you. In this example, our verb is. The gerund phrase is driving too fast. Driving too fast is acting as the subject of the sentence. In the phrase, driving too fast, driving is my gerund. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out the sentence. Driving too fast is very dangerous. I'm going to underline the phrase, driving too fast, and I'm going to either highlight or circle or write the word driving in a different color to show that that is the actual gerund. Driving too fast is the gerund phrase. So you're going to do that for the remaining examples. We have last night I started reading a new book. You can learn a lot by asking questions. Diving into a pool always gives me a thrill. We will raise money by washing cars. Tonight, Mom plans on cooking chicken and rice. I love sleeping late in the morning. Is learning a foreign language more difficult for older people? The ringing of the phone woke me up. Today, using a computer is a vital skill for many jobs. Go ahead and pause the video. Once you have these examples written out, you can resume. All right, for the answers, What I did was I underlined the gerund phrase, and the actual gerund in the sentence is in red. So we did the first one together. The second example, last night I started reading a new book. Started is the verb in that sentence. Reading a new book is the gerund phrase. Reading is the gerund. Now remember, just like we've talked about before, reading would typically be a verb in most sentences. However, the function of reading in this sentence is a gerund. It's acting as a noun. Number 3, you can learn a lot by asking questions. Asking questions is my phrase. Asking is the actual gerund. Diving into a pool always gives me a thrill. In this example, diving into a pool is the gerund. Phrase, diving is the gerund. We will raise money by washing cars. Washing cars is the gerund phrase. Washing is the gerund. Tonight my mom plans on cooking chicken and rice. Cooking chicken and rice is the gerund phrase. Cooking is the gerund. I love sleeping late in the morning. Sleeping late in the morning is the gerund phrase. Sleeping is the gerund. Is learning a foreign language more difficult for older people? Learning a foreign language is the gerund phrase. Learning is the gerund. The ringing of the phone woke me up. Ringing of the phone is the gerund phrase. Ringing is the gerund. In the last example, today, using a computer is a vital skill for many jobs. Using a computer is the gerund phrase, and using is the gerund. If you look at all of the words that are in red, driving, reading, asking, diving, washing, cooking, sleeping, learning, ringing, and using, they all end in ing. All of their functions in all of these examples is a noun. All of these examples happen to be part of a phrase. The entire phrase acts together as a noun. It's not just the word. If you need to pause the video at this point to make sure you have the corrections, please do so. The last thing we're going to do with gerunds today is for you to fill in the sentence with a gerund, so just one word, or a gerund phrase. Obviously, there's no right or wrong answers as long as you're using gerunds and gerund phrases. So we have blank is a popular sport. You could say boxing is a popular sport. That's an example of just a gerund. For me, the best way to stay healthy is, you can say eating clean. In that example, eating clean is the gerund phrase, and eating is the actual gerund. On cold winter days, I enjoy reading by the fire. In that example, reading is the gerund, reading by the fire is the gerund phrase. That actor is famous for donating his time. Donating his time is the gerund phrase. Donating is the gerund. Blank interrupted the mayor's speech. You could say screaming interrupted the mayor's speech. That's just an example of a gerund, obviously because it's one word. You can win friends by buying them. You can win friends by buying them. Buying them is the phrase. Buying is the gerund. Blank is a good way to begin a sentence. You could say laughing is a good way to begin a sentence. An odd way, but a good way. Laughing is the gerund. Blank can keep me busy for hours. You can say watching television can keep me busy for hours. Watching television is going to be the gerund phrase, and watching is going to be the gerund. The idea of blank is growing more and more appealing. The idea of running away from my children is growing more and more appealing. Running away from my children is the gerund. Running away from my children is the gerund phrase. Running is the gerund. And sculpture is the art of making things. Making things is the gerund phrase, and making is the gerund. Obviously, these you can add anything else in. I just wanted to put some examples of just gerunds or gerund phrases in there so you can see. That's all I have today. You should have 3 slides or 3 things written out. You should have this practice. You should have the practice with the corrections if there were any that you need to make. And then there's the actual information part of gerunds. When you're done with that, go ahead and close it up and enjoy the rest of your day.